a family of, by the time I was born, I became the 60th child. I mean, the sixth. And I'm the youngest. And I became the youngest because my father just died 3 weeks before I was born. So there was no possibility of having my mother having another child. And I'm the youngest. And given the circumstances in which I was born, I really was given lots of love. And I grew up without even the notion that my father was not there, because my brother, the eldest brother, I grew knowing that he was the father, and I called him father. And I was really, I mean, in an environment of love and nurtured child, and everything for me, it was like, you know, I mean, family is where I belong, and the family gave me, I mean, the foundations of my personality. Then, I happened, when I go to my secondary school, I am in a class where I am the only girl and I am black. Okay? I'm in secondary school, and that is in colonial times, of course. And I look around and said, what is this? I am in Mozambique. This is an African country. And I happen to be in this class of 40. I am the only African and I'm the only girl. And that began to create problems of the way is my identity and how I relate to others. To cut the story short, I joined the struggle, I became some sort of freedom fighter, and then because we were so few of us who had had education in Mozambique those days, I'm given, at the age of 29, I'm given the responsibility of becoming the Minister of Education. I don't have any, experience as an educationalist. I am in a cabinet of 17, it was not a big one, 17, I'm the only woman, again. And I have to lead education, which is strategically, the government at the time has decided that it's really a very strategic sector. So there I am. What am I going to do? I have to tell you, I cried a lot. I even tried to tell my president at the time that I cannot take this portfolio. I don't think I'm prepared for it. You are setting me to fail. And his response, because it was the first government, he said, do you think I have ever been a president? I'm also going to learn. And I'm also set to fail to that. So I'm not going to entertain this issue of not being minister. Now, what do I want to do here? One is, you are a woman, you are in a cabinet where you are the only woman, and you have this huge responsibility. What do you do? And I started to figure out what I would have to do. I said, okay, in this space, there are people who are much more qualified than I am, they have much more experience than I am, and they are actually educationalists. So the only thing I have to do is to put together this team of people who all of them, by the way, they were older than ours. Yeah. So I have to put together this team and tell them openly, you know more than I do, you are much more experienced than I am, but anything we have to do here, we are going to discuss thoroughly. But at the end of the day, who makes the last decision? It's me, because I'm the one who is going to report to cabinet. And the country, the nation, will look at me and ask, what is the ministry is doing? And the first person is my face. what I'm trying to say here to young women and young women who are sitting in this, you'll be in many times, in 100 times, in situations where, as young as you are, you have to face responsibilities which are much bigger than you are. But they are around you, people who know more than you do, people who have much more experience than you have, just have the courage and humility to bring them, learn, listen, but at the end, take responsibility. This is my first lesson. Then I look at the reports which come to me at the end of the year. And I see that what is happening to girls? They start very well, more or less at the first, second grade, but they come to third, they drop. And you have fewer and fewer girls who complete the primary school, and let alone who transit to secondary school. And when they manage to be in secondary school, they hardly manage them to be successful to complete secondary school. And then I came to remember, by the way, I was the only girl in my secondary school, in my experience secondary school. There's something we have to look here as far as girls' education, okay? So I just want to respond to this. Some people, they say, oh, because you are advocate of women and girls and all those things. These causes I didn't choose to do. These causes came to my hands and they chose me, and I had to learn to deal with them. You will be also girls. Particularly, I'm talking to girls, but I'm going to talk then to girls and boys. You will be in situations where things will come into your hands. You are asked to lead in situations where you really have to say, you know what, it's not about me. It's about the millions who are behind me, who I represent. So I have to figure out how to open up avenues for more girls, not only to be into the system, but also to succeed. I'm going to cut short because of time. I was minister at the time. There were very few ministers of education who were women on the continent. So with some colleagues of ours, we decided to establish what is called the Forum of African Women Educationalists, FAWE. I'm sure you don't know about it. But FAWE was composed of ministers of education and vice chancellors who were women. And at that time, vice chancellors, there were only two. It was Mandela and another one, I can't remember which country. So we started this group, and to say, we have the responsibility of entrenching girls' education into the systems of African countries. So we really devised a strategy in which we would go and speak to other ministers, and other chancellors, of course, but speak also to heads of states, to speak at the so-called today development partners, because they still continue to put money into education. But that's to say, in short, that what some people today take for granted, to say, in education there's no discrimination against girls. It required, at the time, we were 13 of us altogether. Ministers, it was ministers of culture as well. Ministers of education, ministers of culture, and vice chancellors. We are just 13 of us. To try to entrench this into policies which will oblige all African countries to look into the systems and change the systems in favor of supporting girls when they come to be successful. We had to do the work of looking at, and still are still problems today, not only of success, but also why girls are struggling with science. And what you today take is STEMs, and you have we started that time. Why am I telling you this? It's because this issue of breaking traditions, setting up new ways of looking at girls and boys as equal, but also the systems to be aware that it's not going to happen on its own. It has to be, fostered, and you have to be vigilant every time to see, is it progressing or not? It requires you even to look at the systems, how you gather your statistics, and you analyze and you shape policy again. Why this is important today to talk to you about this? Of all the children who are out of school, 2/3 are still girls. I started to be minister in 75, and I left 89. But, no, sorry, 89, exactly. I left at that time. But the challenge of girls' education is still wide and deep with us. So when you redesign what we talked about, redesigning, reimagining Africa, redesigning the tables, and you have to be aware. What is a right? What is a very basic definition of dignity for women? It's not yet there. We still have to struggle first. Many of you here didn't have to struggle that much, but you have the responsibility to acknowledge this and to open the avenues and spaces for all African children, girls and boys, to enjoy the same rights. This is the message for you. In the redesigning, reimagining Africa, we have to say, I dream and I see an Africa where there is no discrimination against girls. And you can see them from the moment they are born until the moment they die as women, mature and old like me. They exercise their rights in equality. So you reimagine your continent and the future you want to build in those terms. That's why I'm bringing this. The second point I want to touch on quickly is how girls and women are being treated. And we come to this issue which we always talk as gender violence. And this doesn't acknowledge class, doesn't acknowledge race, doesn't acknowledge anything. Everywhere, in all structures of societies, there is a persistent denial to accept that a girl and a woman are human beings with the same dignity as anyone else. It's an issue of human dignity. That's why some men, it's not everyone, some men, they believe that they have to shape what women have to do and when and how, etc. And including how many children they have to bear, etc. It's a man's decision in the body of women. And if something happens, then if something she raises her voice to say no, they beat her up and sometimes they kill her. So that is an issue which you reimagining the Africa you want to live in, you want to offer as heritage to your children and grandchildren. This issue of those who believe that they have a right over other human beings simply because they were born female. And Jay spoke very eloquently about the femininity in all of us, men and women. And I'm not very eloquent on this, but I want really to stress this point. Because I have found people in very high positions, accomplished professionals, they are everything. From outside, they are everything. But women, when they're at home, oh yes. And you will be there, and in the following morning she'll say, oh no, I fell. Because she doesn't want to acknowledge that she had been bitten last night. Okay? Yes. Then, this gentleman who is in a very good position, who is highly respected, who is so and so, is the one, yes, he's a boss at the working place, but at home, he's a tyrant against his own wife. Yeah. These are the issues. This generation in Africa where you want to transform. I'm not calling deliberately, I'm not calling you leaders. You remember my remarks in the morning? Yeah. So in this Africa, which you have to transform, coming again to what Jay was saying, you have to transform yourself. Men and women, young women and young men. If I were to ask you here, how many have been abused? Or how many are abusers? You'll be shocked, perhaps. Okay? So it's with us here. It's not something which outside. It's here. With you. You have to transform yourself. I was born in a family I was highly loved and protected and everything. And perhaps that's where I take my source of inspiration to say, I wasn't discriminated against in my family. I was born like what you could call even an orphan, but I never felt I was an orphan, except at a time actually when I was in secondary school, when other fathers would come and fetch their children. That was the first time I looked and said, by the way, my father is not there to come and fetch me at school. But it was not because I was not being cared for. So I think it's important when we look at us, amongst and between us, this issue of gender relations. If I had the time, I would talk also about race. Race. Because in my view, two major challenges which a human family is still facing is one, men and women perceive themselves as equal and all races. To say it doesn't matter. You look at me, actually you could, there were some people who would call me like I'm colored. Whatever. Colored, black or white and yellow, my blood is red as anyone else. Okay? That's the definition of how equal we are. There's no one where when you cut here, you'll get milk coming out. So it's important that these issues as well, so that we don't deal with ourselves from the outside of who we are and what we do. We also to look at this inside of us and the things we have to eradicate if we have to use the right language. I'm sorry I was too long. Thank you.
Graca Machel. Well, the session is exactly about what we've heard in these three conversations around the lessons learned, the important parts of their journeys that inform who they are. And I think for me, it's when we hear these kind of stories that actually add to the reverence that we have for these incredible human beings. Because
actually, I think you shouldn't revere us, huh?
Yes, of course. The respect.
Respect is okay.
Yes, the respect. English sometimes, huh? Yes.
Donna wish I was there. It looks like everything is all fun on the continuation of the Nelson Mandela centenary celebrations there. That was the wife of the late former statesman there, Graca Machel, and it is the Graca Machel Foundation that is sponsoring those centenary celebrations out in Pretoria. Let's take a quick